John was a cab driver who had been driving the same route for years. He knew all the shortcuts and side streets like the back of his hand. One evening he picked up an unusual passenger, a man in a dark coat with a black hat pulled down over his face. John could not make out his features, as if they had been blurred by some strange force. The man directed John to an unknown place and spoke in a strange language that John did not recognize. After what felt like an hour of driving, they arrived at their destination and the man disappeared into the shadows without paying. As John turned to leave, he noticed a small package in the back seat. Opening it, he found a bird feather. It was large, blue-black, smooth and shiny. Suddenly, John felt a chill. It was as if a huge, endless shadow settled over him. He was sure it was the wing of a raven. He threw the feather back into his pocket and hurried home. His old car sped along the deserted night road. The autumn trees, which had lost their leaves, stood out sharply and menacingly in the headlights. But the strangest thing was that ravens were perching out on the branches. It seemed to John that the ravens were watching him. Why had not he noticed them before? An oppressive feeling gripped the night walker more and more. Finally, arriving at his house, John wiped off the large drops of sweat, parked carefully under the windows of his modest house, and hurried home. He could not shake the thought that the birds were still watching him. John exhaled as he closed the front door behind him. He muttered that he was overworked, that it was not worth spending so much time behind the wheel. That night, the cab driver fell into a deep sleep, and in the morning, he woke up to sharp noises. He was sure it was the cawing of ravens. Staggering, John went to the window and looked out at the street. John went cold with horror. Black ravens, cawing and tripping from one foot to the other, were sitting on his car. There were so many birds that it was impossible to tell what color the car was. "Revenge!" shouted John. With glazed eyes, he looked around his room. Stuffed birds he had spent years painstakingly making from his hunting trophies looked at him with dumb, glassy eyes. I always think of this when I go into the woods. It was the most frightening confession my father ever made. I do not know if his story is true, but I will never forget his words. He told me that once he got lost in the forest. He was very scared and didn't know how to find his way home. The forest was very dense and every tree looked the same. The feeling of confusion and loneliness overcame him. He walked and walked until he came to a lonely, gloomy house. The sight of the house filled him with hope, but as he got closer, something alerted him. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he knew something was wrong. He tried to look inside the house through the window, and that's when he saw it. My father saw a gruesome image. The room was dark, and the only source of light was a lamp on the table. My father saw an old man standing next to the table with a knife in his hand. A young boy, possibly 10 years old, was standing next to him. The boy held a large bird in his hands which tried to escape. They were both laughing. The older man approached the bird with a knife. My father could not see what he was doing to that poor creature. The bird emitted sharp cries, and the man and the boy laughed and enjoyed it. The bird emitted a terrible scream and quieted down. My father's face shook with terror, and he took a step back from the window. My father's first instinct was to run away as fast as he could. His heart pounded and he felt the fear in his throat. But after a while, he calmed down and realized that he had to find a way home. On the way there, he kept seeing the horrible image in his mind. It was a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurked in the forest. Eventually, he found his way home, but he never forgot what he had seen that day. The image of the old man and the little boy laughing and hurting the innocent bird haunted him for a long time.
When I recall this incident, I still shudder. I worked for a long time in an office building that used to be a hospital. The office was surrounded by a small park with huge, dark trees. On hot days, I like to walk through the dark avenues or watch the birds from the window. Once, I even tried to film a crow kick with my phone. One evening, I stay longer than usual at work. We had a difficult project. When I finally looked up from the computer and looked out the window, I saw that it was already dark. Suddenly, I heard a piercing female scream. The scream was coming from the park. I ran to the window and saw a flock of crows caving loudly, soaring over the treetops and flying back down. I became frightened. I went down to the second floor, hoping to see our security guard and calm down a bit. But for some reason, he was not there. That was very strange. I called the police and, driven by a strong desire to get out of the office as quickly as possible, ran to the park. It was a mistake. Aggressive crows attacked me. They attacked from behind, aiming at my head with their massive beaks. I was surrounded by an evil flock from all sides. They scratched painfully with their claws, dived right at me. Overcoming the pain and despair, I ran back to the office. There, I waited for the police to help me. The birds inflicted several deep wounds on me. Now, I'm very afraid of these birds. It is said that crows can remember the face of someone who was a treat to their cheek and may attack him later on another day when they deem the time suitable for revenge. Trying to film a cute chick became a mistake that destroyed my peace and instilled fear of this aggressive bird.